This week's edition of Sunday Sit-Down brought to you by Quality Paint and Body on the Crockett Loop. Quality Paint and Body, serving Crockett and surrounding areas. For all your collision needs, stop by Quality Paint and Body today or call 936-544-2619.
I'm a native born and lifetime resident of Deep East Texas. I grew up in Polk County, moved to Houston County back in 1975, and have been here ever since, although for about 5 years I had a job in Austin. So I stayed in Austin most of the time, but always call this home, and love it. I've lived in Crockett most of the last 45 years, but currently residing out at Houston County Lake with my wife, Tina.
All right. Well, for those who don't know, tell us exactly what DebtCog is and what does it do?
DebtCog is our official name is the Deep East Texas Council of Governments and Economic Development District. We're really two things, and the first thing we was a federal economic development district. When LBJ was president, there was legislation passed to create the U.S. Department of, or the Economic Development Administration, which is under the U.S. Department of Commerce. And that legislation allowed regions to come together and create economic development districts to help planning for economic development and growth, and also to help provide a vehicle for communities to access funding for economic development projects and planning projects. And so that's what DebtCog organized as first in 1966. And interesting, Charlie Wilson, who at that time was our state senator, went on to become famous as a U.S. congressman. And of course, he was played in the movies by Tom Hanks. Charlie Wilson was our first president of DebtCog. DebtCog was largely the man behind the scenes pulling folks together to get this cooperation going was Arthur Temple of Temple Industries and later Temple Inland. And Charlie Wilson had a close relationship with him. And Charlie was a state senator at the time, but he was more or less the organizer and served as president for the first few years. Once they became a federal economic development district, then legislation in Austin allowed the creation of the state planning commissions. And so DebtCog, a year or two later, applied for and became a regional planning commission. So we are a political subdivision of the state of Texas as a state planning commission. We're State Planning Region 14, and we're an extension of the U.S. Department of Commerce, EDA, as a federal economic development district. Now, all that said, economic development was our first mission, and it's still a very important part of our mission. But we do a lot of other things now. And the regional planning commissions, which are commonly called COGs, councils of government, but not all. Some of them have other names. In West Texas, there's the South Plains Association of Governments. And in Houston area, there's the Houston-Galveston Area Council. And in the Beaumont area, the Southeast Texas Regional Planning Commission. Most of us are called councils of government. There are 24 of us around the state. The governor delineates our boundaries, but we're a pretty unique creature in that we don't have any taxing authority, we don't have any ordinance making authority. Membership is voluntary. All of our counties are members. Most of our cities, we have over 40 cities in our region, and some are really small, but the vast majority of those 40 plus cities are members, all 11 of our counties. But they're members voluntarily because they see the benefit of working together with their neighbors. And so the legislation that allowed these COGs to be created specifically says it's allowing flexibility so that the Council of Governments or the Planning Commission for this region can do what that region really needs. And so all the 24 COGs have some things in common and deliver some programs in common, but all of us also have some differences because we are designed to be tailor-made for the region and the communities that we serve. And a lot of what DebtCog does, because we're out of those 24 regions, 20 of them have an urban center surrounded by rural communities. We all have rural areas, but there are only 4 of us that don't have any urban centers. We are totally rural. And as a result, various programs that Houston County and the city of Crockett and other cities and counties in our region really just aren't large enough, wouldn't have enough participation to run these programs on their own. And so when they tell us, we run these programs at the regional level for the benefit of them. And I like to tell people, we don't run counties. We're not another layer of government between the county and the state. We don't run the counties and cities, they run us. In fact, the bylaws, the state legislation requires that at least 2/3 of our governing board be elected officials of our cities and counties. So we exist because our cities and counties and other local governments like river authorities and school districts and what have you want us to exist for their benefit.
Well, I know I've written a little bit about y'all working on broadband in rural areas and stuff like that. Tell us more specifically about your role at DebtCog and some of the stuff y'all are working on right now.
Well, I'm the executive director. I'm blessed to have a staff of about 60 people, most of which have been there for a good long while. We're growing some lately, but we're involved in so many different things. In fact, I brought this along. This is on our website if you want to check it out at debtcog.gov. It's our annual performance report. We're required annually to present to the governor, the state auditor, and the legislative budget board, I believe is the other one that gets this, a report on what we did last year and what we plan to do this year. And so as best we can, we condense that down to about 20 or so pages, and that's all in there, and I would encourage anybody to look at it. Our work is as varied as support and funding for the senior citizen centers and home delivered meals and other services for our aging and disabled population, to homeland security planning, disaster recovery after hurricanes and storms, law enforcement training. We administer the 911 network for our region, which means if you're in Houston County and you have an emergency and you call 911, someone at the Houston County Sheriff's Office, a dispatcher, is going to answer that call, but they're able to answer the call and see where you are and where you're calling from because we have the network in place for the 911 system. And that system handles 200,000-300,000 calls a year in our 11 counties. So things like that where we're in the background, and we're happy to be in the background, but you know, it puts the framework in place. We operate a large, in fact, in terms of dollars, our largest program is our DebtCog, or Deep East Texas Regional Housing Authority. We serve about 1,700 families. We don't own any houses, but we operate the HUD Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. And we qualify families who qualify to receive a subsidy, and then we go out and inspect properties where they want to live, and we provide vouchers so that that family can enter into a lease agreement with a property owner. And that program itself puts about probably $12 million a year into the economy of Deep East Texas just in payments that we make every month to property owners here in Houston County and elsewhere around the region. And part of that program too is designed to help people become more self-sufficient so they don't need the program. And we're always happy. We have an FSS, Family Self-Sufficiency Program, and a home ownership program. And our goal is to get those people that are in our housing voucher program enrolled in one of those programs so that they can make themselves more self-sufficient, not need us, and be able to go and buy their own property. And, you know, we'd like to have a lot more, but we've had some good success stories with that. Also, part of that program is called VASH. It's veterans. It works with the VA to provide housing for homeless veterans. And believe it or not, we have a lot of homeless veterans in Deep East Texas, and we support them. They're referred to us through the VA, but a lot of them have housing now because of our efforts. And there's a brand new program that will not ever have many numbers, but it's called FYI, Foster Youth to Independence. there's a problem in Texas. Foster children, once they reach age 18, they're out of the foster program. Some of those at age 18 are not ready, most of those at age 18 are not ready to live on their own, and they can't go back to their birth family because there was a problem while they were taken out of that to start with. And so this program provides housing vouchers specifically for people turning 18 in foster homes that need a year or two of help getting established on their feet so they can become productive citizens.
When you talk about these couple dozen regions in Texas and each one split up so they can super serve their regional needs, and you talked about a few of these, but what are some of the specific challenges that we face in East Texas that our local governments face?
Well, deep East Texas, sadly, is historically mired in poverty. I mean, it is what it is. You know, you can put lipstick on the pig, but it is what it is. You know, I referred to Charlie Wilson a while ago. If you read the book, Charlie Wilson's War, or see the movie, one of the lines in that movie and in the book, when people ask him how he was able to pull together these millions and millions of dollars to fund the Afghan fighters to defeat the Russians in Afghanistan, the reason was because he said, I represent the only congressional district in the nation that doesn't ask for anything. And that's us, deep East Texas. We've sat here for years and decades and not asked for anything. We think we're self-sufficient. Leave us alone, we'll do our thing.
Too proud to ask.
And so a lot of other folks have gotten things that we should have been asking for years ago. And so I think we've finally kind of awakened to the idea that if the federal government and the state government is going to take so much of our tax dollars, then we need to try to start getting some of that to come back to us. And so the economic stresses, and that all, the key thing there is jobs. We need jobs, we need better paying jobs, we need jobs that people can sustain and support families on. I am absolutely convinced that we could come here to Houston County, Texas tomorrow and get in the newspaper and get on the local radio and say, hey, we've got a new employer coming to town. We need 100 workers, or we need 500 workers. If they're good jobs that people can make a living on and support their family, we'll have people lined up tomorrow to take those jobs. There's a ton of people that used to live here that have moved off because they had to make a living that would love to move back. So it's like a chicken and an egg deal. Some people say, well, you know, you got to get the workforce there. Well, we got to get the jobs here before we can show the workforce. But they're out there waiting in the wings to come in and work. So better jobs lead to things like better educational attainment, better health outcomes. Our counties in deep East Texas rank at the bottom of the health outcomes, where we actually measure how healthy people are. We're always at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, does those county health rankings every year. We're always at the bottom. Part of it is access. Part of it is education. But part of it is just lifting people's spirits up and changing the mindset that, well, this is the way it's always been around here, so that's the way it's always going to be, and, you know, don't come in here and try to change anything. I want to capitalize on all the historical, wonderful, natural, good things about deep East Texas. We got so much going for us. But at the same time, I want us to open our eyes for new opportunities, because the economy in the world is changing daily. Our population in most of our counties is declining, and that's the same across the state of Texas. But while we're rural, we're not remote. We are in a wonderful position. The south end of our region, San Jacinto County, is 50 miles north of downtown Houston. We're right here in a beautiful, wooded, forested lakes area where people love to come and would love to live if they can make a living. Now, nowadays, some of them can live here and make a living with a job based somewhere else, but they can't do it if they don't have good internet broadband connection. We have a shortage of doctors. The answer to that could be telemedicine. but it doesn't work unless both the doctor and the patient, wherever they live, 10 miles down that dirt road, has access to high quality broadband. That's what makes telemedicine work. Otherwise, you're just having a telephone call with your doctor, and you don't get that much benefit out of it. We saw in the pandemic, education, there was a time when schools had to try to function remotely. State of Texas provided hotspots that worked well in Dallas, but in deep East Texas, there's no cell signal for your hotspot to work. So we just had to use the old-fashioned way of trying to push paper, homework packets out, and kids do the best you can do and turn them back in. And, I think we all realize our kids have all suffered because of that. So I think broadband, which is one thing you asked about a while ago, I think it's a basic building block on which all these other things can be built and improved upon. It's not like getting broadband to everybody is going to instantly solve all our problems. But I don't think we're going to be able to solve our problems without broadband. And getting it in place, first of all, and then harnessing it and using it for all the beneficial needs that we have.
Last question is, obviously there's so much that DETCOG does that probably many people don't realize in this area. So how can we help you? How can the people help DETCOG accomplish their mission?
Yeah, I've given that a little bit of thought. One thing is just be informed and be involved. Support your local city and county and school. DETCOG is an association of local governments. And, we live in a negative society. We are bombarded at the national level, and oftentimes your local county officials and city officials and school officials get blamed for things when people are mad at their state government or their federal government because you don't have access to those federal legislators, whereas your local elected officials, you see them at the post office or at church or at the cafe or at the school ball games, and so they're accessible to you. I like to say local government or county, I used to be involved in county government. I was blessed to be the county judge of Houston County, and probably still the best job I ever had, although not the most lucrative, but still a wonderful job. And I would tell people, county government, Abraham Lincoln coined the phrase, government of the people, by the people, for the people. County government, and to the same degree, city and other local governments, it's government of the people, by the people, for the people, and among the people. And so support your local communities. If you don't agree with everything they're doing, you've got a chance to have input, show up, learn what they're doing. Try to think about the greater good. We all have a tendency, God made us all humans. We all have a tendency to be wired in on what's good for me and what I want. And, at the same time, let's think about what's good for us, but if it's good for our community, it's good for us too. And same thing on a regional level. If something good happens in one part of Deep East Texas, there's a positive ripple effect that benefits everybody in Deep East Texas. That's what we call regionalism. And so I think, wake up with a determined mindset that this, number one, realize this is a wonderful place to live. It's God's country in my book. We've got our special needs and that, hardships, but we've got so many opportunities here. And I'd say go to our DETCOG website if you want to know about DETCOG, detcog.gov, detcog.gov. Check out everything on there, and if you've got questions, contact us, ask us. Follow us on Facebook. We're on Facebook and Twitter. We get more feedback from Facebook than we do from our website, and I think it's because people have to be going and looking for your website, whereas Facebook searches out for people and puts the message in front of them. So if you're not already, follow us on Facebook. We're always open to questions, constructive criticisms. There's nothing that's ever been done that can't be improved upon. And that's our goal, is to get better every day.